Okay, I want to welcome everybody to today's Wednesday webinar. This is Scott Clayson. I'm the Director of Marketing here at TimeSolv, and you are in the right place to learn some more tips and tricks to get the most out of TimeSolv. I am going to wait another minute or so, I think, before I start to dive into today's topics. I want to let people get settled in. Some attendees are always a minute or two late. So I will jump back in here in about another 60 seconds or so. Thanks, everybody. All right, let's go ahead and all right, let's go ahead and get started with today's webinar. I think everyone who plans on attending is already here. This is being recorded, and I will send out an email as soon as the recording gets processed to everyone who has attended here so that you can revisit the webinar at your leisure. Again, welcome to our May Wednesday webinar. This is the place where we like to go over some of the various tips and tricks to try to get the most out of your TimeSolv account. To introduce myself again, this is Scott Clayson. I'm the Director of Marketing here at TimeSolv, and will be your host as I have been for, gosh, how long have we been doing these Wednesday webinars now? It has to be like 3, 4 years, maybe 2017 we may have started these. Anyway, doesn't matter. This is where, for those of you that are firm owners or administrators of your TimeSolv account, you get weekly tip of the week emails from us. And our Wednesday webinar is simply aggregating the previous 4 weeks tips into a webinar format to show you kind of in real time in the application the topics that were covered during those tip of the weeks. So it's that simple. And I love always seeing, I know we have a number of people who sit in on this webinar every month that I see familiar names. So it's fun to see you all here. I kind of feel like you're just all part of my TimeSolv family. So let's go ahead and get started and take a look at what we're going to cover today. As always, everyone is on mute. If you do have questions, please use the Q&A, the question and answer icon that you should see at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions. I will get to those most likely after each topic that we cover. So we will then have it open up completely once I'm through the webinar. This shouldn't take more than 45 minutes, I think, at the longest. I think today's topics won't take a ton of time. So let's talk about today's topics. Okay, so one of the things I want to show you all is an update that was made to our TimeSync application. Our TimeSync application has seen quite a bit of change in the last 6 months or so. It's been completely redone essentially, and we have modified it a bit since its release to make it more user-friendly, we think. And the addition of keyboard shortcuts that can be used while using TimeSync is one of the things that we think will help people move through that application faster and easier. And I really would advocate for, especially for those that are just rank and file timekeepers, they don't necessarily need or have any desire to see a lot of things in TimeSolv other than just, hey, I just need to create time entries. I just need to create expense entries against clients and matters or clients and projects. I think the TimeSync tool is probably the best option for that. The next thing I want to mention, just once again, this part of our tip of the weeks that we sent out was about our Lex Charge integration that we have, our credit card processing integration with Lex Charge. And I will speak briefly to some changes that are actually going to come with that, which are very exciting. But that was a little bit of a tease, but I do want to show you, where you can go ahead and set up payment processing, how you can associate it to your payment profiles and TimeSolv and so on. Then third, billing done for you. I will cover this briefly, just so everyone is aware who's on the webinar about an additional service that we do offer for all of our existing customers. We call it outsourced legal billing. An easier term would be to just call it billing done for you. And it eliminates, especially for firms that may not have the capacity to have a full-time billing manager or administrator, or somebody who is handling the billing on a full-time basis. You might have enough work where you as a lawyer don't want to do it all yourself, but not enough work where it warrants hiring a full-time person. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then the last two things I want to bring up is payment allocations. It's something our support staff talks about all the time, is the number of firms that have issues because they don't allocate the payments they record in TimeSolv to specific invoices. And it is to me, an accounting 101 to make sure that if you are going to record a payment in TimeSolv, which you should be, that it gets allocated towards the right invoice so that those invoices can be marked as paid. And then last, I do want to review quickly. I haven't gone over this in a while, and it is a powerful tool, especially for firms that are larger size, and there's many users in their TimeSolv account, is our Audit Log. It is a pretty powerful way as an admin or firm owner to be able to see who's doing what in your TimeSolv account. If there's any things that come up, questions that come up about how the heck did this happen, that you can use the Audit Log to try to find your way down that trail. So that's what we're going to cover today. So let's get started here. And first talk about our TimeSync keyboard shortcut. So first of all, let's make sure everyone is aware of what exactly our TimeSync tool is. We allow, and we have essentially an application that can be downloaded on your computer that allows you to create time and expense entries without having to have a browser window open. And more importantly, we think not even having to be connected to the internet. It is one of the ways we've tried to overcome the hurdle for firms or companies that are reluctant to move to cloud-based software because of the fear, like, well, what happens if my internet connection is having issues? And that's less, I know, of a problem for a lot of businesses than it used to be. But now that a lot of us are still probably working in home offices or doing more home officing, at least, even if you have returned back to work, to a traditional office, you may have more flexibility in being able to work from home. And we know that home internet connection isn't necessarily as perhaps strong or as reliable as when you're in your office. So we have our TimeSync tool, our TimeSync application. The way each individual person within their TimeSolv account can get that is if you go under account to professionals, and the professional would just simply click on their own name. In this case, I'll click on my dummy name, Scott Laidlaw here. And there will be a link called, a tab labeled TimeSync. And within here, gives you the instructions on how to download and install this. Essentially, you download it through Google Chrome. It's a really unique way. I've never seen it happen the way you do it before, but it is pretty slick, actually. So you need to, If you don't use Chrome, totally understandable, but you would, if you want to use the TimeSync tool, it's a one-time use of Chrome, basically. You just, Chrome is just the vehicle to download the tool for your, the installer that will install TimeSync. So you just follow the instructions. You basically go to Chrome, go to this URL, and then you click the plus icon that will appear up in the browser window, the browser address bar, and then follow the instructions from there. And what you get from that then is a piece of software that will sit on your desktop. And as you can see down here on my screen, I have a just in my tray bar here, my task bar, the application, and it's opening up right now. And now I'm logged into the TimeSync tool. This is a kind of a bare bones way to create time entries or expense entries and then sync them to your TimeSolv account. If you go under, I'm not going to go through a full how you use TimeSync. I've done that before, but if you click on the three horizontal bars there, you can go ahead and click sync. And what this does is any new time, or excuse me, any new clients and matters that have been created since the last time you ran a sync are now going to be synced up into this application. And so it's a way to obviously keep the data fresh, and it'll sync over any new abbreviations you may have created and so on and so forth. But more importantly, when you go to make a time entry here, notice if you've used the TimeSync application, you hopefully have already noticed this, but it'll tell you that there are keyboard shortcuts for creating time and expense entries and doing other things. So you can't obviously see what I'm doing here, but I'm not going to click this little arrow here to, or excuse me, this plus sign. I'm not going to click this to create a new time entry. Instead, I'm just going to do Control Shift F. And now it's going to bring up a new time entry screen for me. A couple other things that we've improved on the interface. This was purely based on feedback we got from our customers, is now you can, just like when you're in the TimeSolv application, find a client and matter together. So I can start typing, Tim, and it's going to bring up Tim Couch from the Cleveland Browns, for example. Same thing where, with a time entry where you have the option in the browser version to save and duplicate and so on. You can do that here, save and duplicate or save and new. So these various abbreviations that we have, if you want to discard it, yes, I do. If you go under our menu item here, the three horizontal lines, down here we have a link that will show you all the keyboard shortcuts available in the TimeSync application. So you can see we have, 3, 7, and then another 5. So we have 12 different keyboard shortcuts to allow you to save an entry, create a new one, duplicate, save and duplicate the existing entry, open up your abbreviations. So I can be in a time entry here that I'm making, and if I do Control Shift A, that's going to bring up the abbreviations I have available to me. If I want to go over and do a time, or I want to create a expense entry from any screen here, I can say I'm going to go Control Shift E, and whoop, that was, excuse me, that was Control Shift E. That's the wrong. Sorry about that. What was that keyboard shortcut for an expense entry? Yes, it's Control Shift E. Okay, I must have clicked that wrong. Control Shift E. And it's doing something different for me because of an overriding screenshot extension that I have. So that wasn't a very good example, now was it? All right, well, let's try that again. I think the point is that we got a lot of feedback from customers about wanting to use keyboard shortcuts when creating time entries in TimeSync, kind of similar to the way the old TimeSync tool used to work. So again, you go over the horizontal bar here, go to keyboard shortcuts, and this will show you all the various shortcuts it can create. Like if I want to attach a receipt, I don't have to actually click on create an expense entry. I'm gonna Control-Shift-R will allow me to attach a receipt. So it's going to automatically pull up now the ability to attach a receipt that I may have, and so on. So again, for those of you that are really into keyboard shortcuts, this is a great, I think, addition. Again, this one, you can expand out this window as well here, you might notice. You can make this as big or small as you want. And we really think this is a fantastic tool to use. Again, if you are only really using TimeSolv for time and expense entries, this is probably the way to go, is to use the TimeSync tool. Okay, question is, can TimeSync be downloaded on a mobile device, iPhone or iPad? The TimeSync tool is essentially the equivalent of our already existing mobile app. In fact, you will notice if you open up the mobile app, it is almost identical. So you are going to, in fact, let me do a quick share of my iPhone that I have, and I'll show you how similar it really looks. So give me just a second here. So everybody should be seeing my iPad right now, or excuse me, my iPhone right now. And I'm going to scroll over to where I have the TimeSolv app down here in the bottom corner. And you'll notice when I'm in here, this looks real similar to the TimeSync tool, doesn't it? Very similar. Essentially, what's great about the tool that we use to build TimeSolv, it's called OutSystems. It allowed us to build our mobile application and our TimeSync basically using the same box, if you will. So this is the answer to that question, Poonam, is for a mobile device or iPhone, just use our mobile app that you can get in the App Store, both Google and iPhone. For an iPad, we don't have an iPad specific application. You could do one of two things if you are going to be doing time entries, expense entries, and so on your iPad. You could use, and like many people, who have done this, iPhone, if we have an application for an iPhone, you can put it on your iPad. It's just going to be scaled to the size of a phone device. Or what I would recommend is just using your browser on an iPad, whether you use Safari or Chrome or Firefox or whatever on your iPad. Keep in mind that TimeSolv is responsive design, which means that the size of the window here, excuse me, is going to, when I get a smaller window, the iPad view is going to look probably similar to this in a browser. You can still have your calendar. If you tap on, obviously instead of click, tap on the date, you could choose different dates, tap on closing that out, and so on. So the full function version of TimeSolv really is available on the iPad. It is the best way, I think. I know of many people who, and I've done this myself in testing, use the iPad and run the browser version, the web application version of TimeSolv. You will get this little, 3 horizontal bars to extend out the menus here when you're on a smaller size screen. So that's what I would do with the iPad. Good question. Any other questions on the TimeSync application? Okay, let's move on then and talk about our integration that we have with Lexcharge. As many of you probably know, from many years now, we had an integration with LawPay, which is kind of one of the dominant, if not the dominant, credit card and e-check processor in the legal space. There's another processor as well now that we have integrated with since last November called Lex Charge. And it allows you, they actually have better rates than LawPay. It's a flat rate. There's an introductory special rate of 2.75% processing fee and 20 cents per transaction for any card type, which is really big, because if you have clients that would pay you via credit card using a specialty card, in other words, an American Express or something other than just kind of like their regular bank card, those are at a higher fee normally. Normally, those are anywhere from like 3.5 to sometimes 4%. Lexcharge has a flat fee no matter what kind of card you use. They also don't have a monthly fee, whereas LawPay has an additional $20 a month fee. Um, and it is really convenient for accepting. I'm hoping everyone here on this call at your business, you accept electronic payment of some sort, either a credit card or ACH payment, e-check. And the e-check is a flat fee as well. It starts at 20 cents, excuse me, 30 cents per e-check. Doesn't matter the size of the check. For those of you that may not want to, you're not interested in the handling the processing fees. There is a way to both LawPay and Lexcharge if you do want to do surcharging, which is essentially adding on, passing that fee on to your clients. There is a way to do that. We highly recommend that you don't do that, pass that on, and that you, if kind of the cost of doing business where most people are paying, cashless type of transactions, you just build it into your pricing structure at an additional whatever percent, with, since you're getting a flat fee with Lexcharge, you could just add 2.75% to every, to your rates basically if you wanted to cover your processing fees. But to get started with Lexcharge, and Lexcharge is part of the TimeSolv family now. I have mentioned that TimeSolv just about a year ago, almost exactly to the day. I think it was like May 15th is when the ink was actually signed. Was when TimeSolv was acquired by a private equity group, and Lexcharge is part of that group as well. So now we are part of a couple of sister companies in the legal tech industry, Lexcharge being one of them. So they are part of us, which is nice because you get an interaction that's more seamless than working with LawPay. To get started with a Lexcharge integration, you go under Account and Integrations here. And this is where you could get started right here with an application. It takes about 5 minutes. You do need some information about your banking account and so on. There will be a credit check will be run and so on and so forth. But there's just several steps that you have to complete here, about you, your business, and that so on and so forth. And then once you are approved, and you generally are approved within about 24 hours, they're pretty quick at doing the approval. Then in TimeSolv, no matter whether you're using a Lexcharge or LawPay, under payments and settings, you can go to your bank accounts, and this is where you can set up the bank accounts that you have here and create a payment profile that is tied to either your Lexcharge or your LawPay account. In this case, I'm already set up with a LawPay account. This allows you two things. You can associate your clients and matters to a payment method. We highly encourage, as I've talked about on some previous webinars, that you collect payment information from your clients up front. And by payment information, I mean like your ACH bank information or a credit card number. And then you can store that at the client or matter level in TimeSolv. Now, it's not actually being stored at TimeSolv. It's being stored by either Lexcharge or LawPay, since they're the processor. So that's part of why this integration is really nice, is that you don't have to go back over into LawPay or Lexcharge in order to store that payment information. You can do that right within your TimeSolv account. So I could go into either any client or matter. When you are viewing their information, there's a tab called Payment Settings, and that's where you can enter either credit card or ACH information. In this case, Aviante Software has this dummy credit card that I have in place already. And of course, the benefit of that, as I've shown, and we'll talk about this a little bit when we talk about payment allocation, is the ability to then, you can run payment on an invoice for your client. And I think that's huge. And I can't slow down and say that. And if I could talk in all caps, how do you think I would? You can run payment for your clients you can have them an invoice be paid because you have their payment information. A lot of firms have even been more proactive, and they are on a model just like your Netflix account, where you give your payment information up front. And or I should say, here's a better example: utility bills. Like my utility bill varies every month, obviously, but I just have a credit card on file, and they just send me the invoice of my gas bill. They send my gas invoice every month, and I can look at it and I could dispute it if I want. But after a certain number of days, there's like a due date, like payment due on, let's say I get the invoice on May 5th, and it says payment due May 15th or whatever the case may be. Unless I do anything, I can do nothing, and the payment is run on May 15th because I have put my credit card information on file with them. This is no different, where you can set up, and we have firms that do this, where they collect the payment information upfront and they state, we're going to send out our invoices on the 5th and the 15th or whatever, and the payment date will be 10 days later, May 15th, unless we hear otherwise. And then you can come into TimeSolv and run those payments as I showed before. But we were really happy with the Lex Charge integration that we have with TimeSolv. And near the end of this month and going into June, we're going to marry it even tighter. We are rebuilding that integration from the ground up, and it's going to be rebranded as TimeSolv Pay. So TimeSolv Pay will essentially be built right into your TimeSolv experience. You'll be able to go to a TimeSolv Pay portal, set up all sorts of, if you have recurring payments that need to happen, you could set up that surcharging if you'd like. You could see all the reports on your payment information that has happened, that's come through. All that stuff is going to be on a platform called TimeSolv Pay, which is essentially powered by Lexcharge. So we're marrying the two together even more and making it a product just like sending out invoices or just like creating time entries right within TimeSolv. We're very excited about it. You're the first customers I've even mentioned this to. And again, it should be happening by the end of this month or the first week of June is what we think. So yeah, you got some little insider knowledge. Okay, so that's Lexcharge and how it works and how you marry it to your payment profiles when you have your bank account set up in TimeSolv. The next topic I want to talk about is billing done for you. And again, I won't belabor the point here, but we do allow or have a service called Outsourced Legal Billing, where we'll do the billing work for a firm. Just so you know, I'm not sure a lot of people are even aware that we have this option. And the way the flow of it works is you, as the firm, will still have all your timekeepers enter their time entries, either online or offline through TimeSync or even on Excel spreadsheets, and we can import them in for you. We then also allocate payments that have been recorded by you to the invoices. So again, payments will be marked, invoices can be marked as paid or unpaid. Every month, then we will create the draft invoices for you, and we'll send them by PDF to you for your approval. You can approve the draft invoices, make updates, and we'll run them again. And then we will send out the final invoices to customers for you, which is nice, through whatever method you designate, whether email, regular first class mail, or if it's a leads invoice. A lot of our outsourced legal billing customers have to do lead bills, electronic bills, and that can be a mess. So we'll upload those lead files to whatever the portal is. The insurance defense portal usually is what it is out there. You have a lot of experience with that. We'll also then generate specific reports for the firm that you designate. Then when you get paid, all you have to do is record the payments in TimeSolv. And again, we go back and we'll allocate it. So again, this is a service that is for firms that are probably small enough, too small to justify a full-time admin billing person, but not big enough where you absolutely can justify hiring somebody full-time for that. So it is an additional, a money on top of your TimeSolv account. We do charge you more for this service, and we break it up based on whether you're doing e-billing, so leads invoices or not. I just wanted to kind of give everyone and show everyone that this is an option that we can provide, and we've been doing this for years for many firms who use TimeSolv, and we don't do a lot of talk about it. We talk about it with a lot of firms when they start using TimeSolv, and then that start right away with us doing the outsourced billing. But if you've been using TimeSolv for years and you're finding like I just don't want to do all this sending of the invoices, creating the drafts, doing all that, just know that we provide that service as an option. So just food for thought. Okay, let's talk about payment allocations. It's, just so you guys know, we're determining what should be the tip of the weeks every Monday. We have a quick little session with our support staff and our sales staff. Two main topics always come up, and it's basically based on, hey, what are you guys hearing from our customers? What kind of support calls or questions are being asked a lot that we can try to cover here in the Wednesday webinar? And there's two main topics that always come up: how to manage contacts, which I go over frequently, and payment allocations. And I hope that everyone here is very clear about how you can do this in TimeSolv. So I'm going to run over this here briefly. When you have your sent invoices, one thing that hopefully people know, and I've shown this again many times, is for a particular date range, when you're showing your sent invoices, you can always sort your invoices by the balances that are left on the invoice. And if you click on it twice, it's going to bring the ones that are unpaid up to the top. So whenever you have an unpaid invoice here, you'll always are going to see this little dollar bill icon. And when you click on that, it's going to take you to our payments screen and pre-populate with the balance that is due. So if I click this little payment icon, it's already showing me the client in matter is Aretha and it's estate planning, and the amount here. You can also obviously come straight to our payment screen and manually find the client in matter for the payment you want to record and manually enter the amount, because we know that life is messy and your clients don't always necessarily pay you the exact amount that's on an invoice, especially if they have multiple invoices or perhaps multiple matters. But this is where the heart of what you do with payments here and allocating to payments. You want to make sure that you have the date in which the payment was made correct here. Is this a payment, a credit memo, or a write-off? And what's the payment method? And you have all the various options. Credit card would be if you don't have the integration built in with LawPay or Lexcharge. You say you have a terminal that is at your office with a card swipe terminal, or maybe you take it over the phone and punch it in, something with your bank. This is where you can record that the payment method was a credit card. If you do have a credit card on file, like in the method I described earlier, then you would have one more option here that says credit card on file. And then you have the reference number you could put in, and obviously the amount was pre-populated from that invoice. And then you could take any note, put any notes in if you want about this payment. So I'm going to go ahead and record this payment and hit save. And now notice that it's now come up and shown that I have a payment here that I can allocate to an invoice. And that's the big step a lot of firms miss. Okay. This is the big thing that gets missed, is hitting allocate. So you want to make sure you hit allocate here. It's going to show, you could include all the matters that you have for the client. In this case, I'm not going to. There's just the one unpaid one. It's going to pre-populate with the payment amount. If you do have multiple invoices, you want to allocate a payment across different invoices, you can either do it equally amongst all the invoices or allocate the payment to the oldest invoice first. But once you have the amount in here and everything, it does pre-populate with the amounts. You'll hit allocate. It's going to double check and say, yep, this is where I'm allocating. I'm going to hit save. And now when I come over to that invoice, and I go to, it was this Aretha estate planning, it's now in invoice order. You can see it's now paid at $90.63. Now, the beauty of having a credit card on file And let me show you the beauty of how you kind of get to skip that allocating process, which is really nice. So I have this draft invoice that I'm going to send for Best Buy, and I already have their credit card information on file, I know. So I'm going to send that invoice. And so I'm going to go over to my draft screen, or excuse me, I'm going to go over to my sent screen. And here's that invoice. Now, again, for those of you that haven't seen this before, under this more options of our sent invoices, I could say, show me just clients and matters in which I have a payment method on file. And in this case, all of the, you can see this shortened it up a little bit, but I have this Best Buy on file. So instead of having to click the payment icon and go and record the payment, everything, because I have that payment method on file, all I have to do is check that box, hit charge. That's going to run the payment on the invoice. And now, as you can see, as we go back, I'm going to do this by invoice number. Now it's been paid. In other words, the payment was not only recorded, but it also allocated it to the invoice and marks the invoice as paid. So it skips that step. You get to pass go and collect your $200, or in this case, your $1,300. Much faster and easier way, if you have the payment method on file, to just run the charge here from the sent invoice screen. The payment's recorded over in the payments area, and it allocates it to the invoice. So question, does our using our credit card processor, will the payments automatically flow into TimeSolv, or do we have to record the receipts? If you're running the payments in TimeSolv, like you just saw, um, it automatically flows. You will have the payments will be showing up here, um, and there's no problems. So if I go to that Best Buy, and I believe it was estate planning. I can't remember now. Maybe it was. Hang on, let me go back to get the name of the matter. So yes, that Samsung one. So I can come down here and say, Best Buy, Samsung, and I'm going to show all types of payments. If I hit search here, it's going to show, the payment has been recorded here via LawPay, because that happens to be the one I have. And it's assuming payment method is not on file. So yeah, if you don't have the credit card method on file, the one thing you can use the client portal to have your clients pay through through TimeSolv, and then that'll allocate the payment to the invoice. If you're doing it still manually, if you will, where yes, you have LawPay set up, but you're not having your clients pay it. In other words, you can't, I wish we did, have a way where you could just type in the credit card number right here and run a payment. Would have to do that over like in LawPay or in Lexcharge and actually run the payment. That is not going to then flow automatically into it's not going to flow automatically into TimeSolv. You would have to record it over on this side, and you could say it's a credit card, okay? And then you would have a receipt of the payment. So if you are the one running, again, it doesn't matter if you're using LawPay or Lexcharge or the dumb terminal or a swipe terminal from your bank. If you're not running the payment or your client isn't providing the payment to our portal, then yes, you have to manually record it over here. I believe, and I don't know this 100%, but I believe that next iteration that I described, TimeSolv Pay, would solve that problem. You could go in TimeSolv Pay, manually enter a payment from a client because they're on the phone and they're giving you their credit card number, and you're typing in the numbers while you're on the phone and running that payment, that it would then be able to automatically move over into TimeSolv essentially and record that payment, I believe. Again, I haven't seen the demos yet of how it's all built. We're literally in the process right now. So good question. Hopefully that answered your question. Any other questions about payment allocations before we move on? Okay. Last thing I want to show you here before the end of the webinar is our audit log that's available for admins and firm owners to access. So if you go under your account setting here, if you're an administrator or you own the TimeSolv account, you will see audit log as an option. This audit log is a pretty powerful tool to see what the heck who's been doing what in your TimeSolv account. And you can filter it through a variety of ways to try to get some information that, is perplexing you, let's say. First of all, to kind of show you what we're seeing here, this is essentially a log with the timestamp, which type of TimeSolv tool was used. In this case, it's the web application, which is what I'm in, who the user was and what they did. And then you could either see a more detailed record of what happened by hovering over this page icon, or in the case of invoices and other things, if you click on this icon here, it'll take you directly to the invoice in this example. So how can we filter it? Well, first of all, you could enter some search criteria for what you might be looking for if you know there's a term or of some sort. Here's the application part, and there's a lot here, and so a lot of it is going to be applicable to you. But basically, the web app is probably the most used, application. Here's TimeSync. Here's the mobile phone. Even if our back office did something, so there's your QB thinking. It'll show you those as well. If you use the Outlook add-on or add-in, it'll show you things that somebody did using the Outlook add-in. So you always see that here. Like here, you can see TimeSync was synced successfully. I did that earlier, during this webinar. You can then search by the type of kind of action, if you will. Was it something that was put at the client level? Was it a note a client matter note? Who logged in when? Payments is great. Who recorded that payment? I don't know. Well, now you can find out. Time entries. That's so there's a whole variety of things you can see here that you could filter by. And what I think is important for a lot of people, you can filter by not just users of your TimeSolv account, but these other users that I have. These are people who have client portal access. So if you are using the client portal, and you are giving access, and you want to see what they've done, if somebody says a client called and said, well, I tried getting into the client portal to make a payment, but I couldn't get in. So I don't know what happened. You can go into this audit, find that person, and see, did they really successfully log in or not to the client? You can also search by the client or the matter and see what type of actions have happened at those particular levels. Great tool, especially for firms that have multiple users, to be able to just understand if you have a question of like what happened with something. Now you'll be able to find out. Any questions on the audit log? Okay. As always, if you think of any questions or you'd like more information about anything that you've seen here today, send out an email to our support staff, support@timesolv.com. You can give them a call at our 1-800 number with extension 2. If you have ideas about how you think TimeSolv can be improved, go to timesolv.ideas.aha.io. I'm going to put that in the chat section right now of the webinar here. And that is and I've shown this before, this feature request, if you will, suggestion box is a place where you can not just make a new suggestion, but search for existing suggestions. And I always say you should do this first to see if your idea is something that somebody else has already documented, because then you can upvote on ideas. And that is really, um, a popular way to see, because our dev team, our product team does look at this and does see, what, uh, what are people asking for? Like, for example, 24 and 23 people, these are essentially, they would like to have the top section of the screen freeze here, which I guess maybe we already do have that done. So that's just an example. Okay. You can filter by ones that we've determined we're not going to implement, ones that already exist. Again, this is why we do Wednesday webinars. Maybe you have a suggestion for something that already we can do. Those that are planned, that we're going to work, and those that have essentially been shipped out into production and are completed. Okay, so that's all I have for today's Wednesday webinar. I will send out a recording. This will be posted on YouTube as well, the TimeSolv YouTube channel. So you can watch at your leisure there and past Wednesday webinars if you'd like. I much appreciate everyone taking their time. And any questions that come in, I'll be sure to answer them in the email that I send out to everyone at the end of the, when I send out the link with the email. Well, can't talk. Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you in June.